Welcome to the Andy Noise Experience podcast, Endurance Noise, Random Musings. It's Monday, August 17th. It is hotter than heck here in California. And who do I got here? Jester.
The Jester. Without my hat, I'm actually wearing the hat we got from the race over the weekend. Thought I would help promote them and got some swag, so I'll put it to good use. And I'm actually at home in my own house on a Monday, which is unusual because usually we're doing this on a Friday from an airport and on the post race from an airport. Hey, you got a Jester hat, so good. I don't need to wear one. Perfect.
No, I'm not,
I recognize that. That's from the world record run, isn't it? From 2014, huh? Yeah.
I've been remodeling my room studio / man cave and found it. I actually have a cool backdrop now. So when I do things, well, I like using these virtual backgrounds. I'm sure some people probably are annoyed with me using them, but and I see the shirt there, Southern Discomfort. So that was the race from 2 weeks ago.
It was, from the weekend before. So Andy, I'm gonna say this. I keep saying it. So you got to hold me accountable, my friend. I really, really want to do a race report combining these last two races, just because one was from the great Northwest and one was from the great Southeast. And they're just, things are similar, things are different. So this is the shirt from last weekend. This is the hat from this weekend. So hold me accountable. I've got to do a race report because, today was go ahead.
Oh, well, we kind of do them on here. So I think that's where you go, I kind of get away with just doing a podcast with Andy and not doing it. I was just going to say, it's really weird to see you, almost to see me wearing the race gear, because I always wear my shirts. Mainly I wear these shirts because I like carrying my phone, and when I was coaching I had to carry crap, and so I like having pockets, and so to run a race without pockets just drives me insane. So I often have race shirts underneath my shirts, the comfy ones, so I'm never walking around like a billboard. And occasionally I do get some nice hats, but those are definitely nice hats. Speaking of nice hats, I see that Thunder Ultras, you saw him up there in Oregon, Craig, they had a nice hat for that race. Oh, you already got it
right here.
Or is that last year's or this year's?
I think it's this year's, but I don't know if he said, Ed, I'm going to warn you, their size wrong. He said I had to put mine to the very last notch, and here,
I always have
the very last notch. So I don't know if he's getting some others, but anyway, he had these there at the race and was giving them out. And,
okay, cool.
I love the design, of course, buckles. No buckle this weekend. You know me, I'm kind of a buckle snob because I've got my big ring, 50 pounds of buckles, and didn't get to add one to it. But you know what? There's worse things. If it came down to run a race with a buckle or no race at all. How am I trying to say this? Basically, I'll do a race without a buckle. I'd rather have the race itself. The buckle is just kind of icing on the cake.
Well, speaking of hats, it's really funny. I'm sure people will agree. I have a big head, and I've always had a big head. It's funny when I was.
We know that, Andy. Yeah, we all know that about you.
But when I was playing Little League baseball, like as 8 or 9 years old, they would give me a ball cap, and I'd be like, dude, that's not going to work. I'd be like, it's going to sit on my head like a yarmulke. and I'd put it on, and I would run, and it would fall off. And so I used to have to wear coach's hats. I have like a size 8 head. I used to have to wear coach's hats when I was a kid. And so a lot of times I'm always putting it at the extreme, and then it's kind of funny. Some people have these little tiny pinheads practically. And so, I've always had to. So that's why you'll often see me wearing that Nike hat of mine, because it fits. And I always go with stuff that works and goes. So the shirt, the hat, it's all, all part of the process. And so
it's all functional.
Yeah. And wanted to congratulate you. And I'm going to let you kind of tell us what happens. We can congratulate you on your birthday, getting a podium, getting second. And it was a pretty brutal race. I didn't have any reports until I woke up in the morning, and somebody did take a picture at 3 a.m. I did the quick math, and you were like, 6 hours ago, I wrote 85 miles, and I was like, okay, he'll get around 110 minimum. And that's basically about what you did. So so tell us, last time we left you, you were flying out of San Diego. And so what happened from then?
So this was a local race as far as just up north in Salem, Oregon. So it was a quick, what is it, 2.5 hour plane ride compared to going over to the east and having to jump on multiple planes. So I was in San Diego getting ready to catch a ride and got in Friday night, got a my car rental, drove to the race venue. Race started at 9 a.m. So I had plenty of time, slept in my car, and they gave me a nice little upgrade from a little compact to a nice Subaru SUV, which is really comfy. It's like, well, I like this vehicle. This is I have my Honda Fit that's an '08 that I've got.
It's a clown car.
Yeah, it's a teeny little car.
Yeah.
Hey, it's called Honda Fit for a reason. You can fit it, me and everything I bring with me. So I call it, as you know, the Honda Hotel. I've slept in that many times. And my wife, that has 280,000 miles on it. My wife's car, which is a Honda Civic hybrid, has 320,000. So the two cars together, 600,000 miles on them. But anyway, it was nice to have a little more room to spread out.
Yeah.
Slept there, and then we knew the temperature was going to be pretty warm, but no humidity.
Yeah.
And I really honestly believe these last races that I did, so there are 4 races almost week to week.
Yeah.
It was 1 week break, but they were all in humidity. And I truly believe that actually was great training, because when I got into this dry heat, and I don't know, 100 to 110, I mean, it's a heat wave all over the West.
Yes.
You know, and Oregon got it too. But it really, and you know, I ran in bad water at 128 degrees at the hottest, but typically it'll go up to the 120s. And I like the if I have a choice between heat, obviously the dry heat, but I really do believe that humidity trained me well, and I had a good race.
Oh, well, just, if anything, it just was like, oh, at least I'm not soaking wet this entire thing. Here in Bakersfield,
exactly.
It's 110, and we've been getting up at 5:30, Blanc and I, and it's been 8. We ask Alexa, she'll probably talk now, but we'll say what temperature is, and she's like, it's 85, and it's just humid, and Blanca hates it. Yeah, Alexa just said
108 degrees.
And it's 96 right now, and it's 11 o'clock in the morning.
I thought I had 108 degrees. I don't know. No, I must have misheard that.
Yeah, anyway. No. But she also said how. And so, speaking of it, they think Badwater, Death Valley set a record. It was 130 the other day, and it's not quite official yet. And that's like the hottest it's been since like 1930 or something. I did it on a podcast. So speaking of hot, but yeah, so we're just sweating buckets, and so that's cool. That now, before you continue on there, I had a question. Like, you often are sleeping in your cars. Do you have any problems with the local authorities or anybody rolling up on you?
Funny thing, I was doing this little race in Bakersfield called Celtic 100 or Celtic 24 Hour, and this is 2 or 3 years ago. Yeah. And I had gone into their bathroom and changed it in my Jester gear, and so
at a mini mart. At a mini mart, yeah.
At a mini mart in the car, and 2 cops peace officers came on both sides of my car, and they were nice, but they're what's going on here? It's like, oh, I'm doing this race because back then there were some clowns, and literally these guys, those clowns going around doing mischief,
terrorizing,
and so. Yeah, so they were really concerned, hey, what's this outfit about? And again, they were very nice, very cordial. Yeah. So I explained it to them. I said, the high school right over here, there's a race, starts at 8 o'clock. This is how I roll. And they're like, okay, all right. We got some calls. People saw somebody dressed as a clown outside the mini mart, and we just want to make sure. But I'm telling you, your police force is on top of it there in Bakersfield. At least they were for that situation.
Oh yeah, they're well known. I still remember one time we were coming home from some race up north, and we rolled into a mini mart in some small little town. Like a lot of farm workers are there, and you got out and you're partially still in your costume, and like Sunday afternoon, and they're all going in there buying beers, and the looks you kind of got. And I got also.
I do remember that. I remember that. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, you get looks anyways, but there it was like we were the only like non-Spanish speaking people for miles, and it was just some little podunk local thing. It was, I don't even know how we ended up there, but I just remember walking in and everybody's just like. Yeah. What is that? But what I was going to say, also people don't understand, like you sleep in the cars is so many people have met you in person, but you're a pretty good sized guy. I mean, how tall are you?
6'2", with my Jester hat, more like 6'8", but 6'2".
Yeah. It's actually interesting. I'm 5'10", but my 2 oldest sons are 6'2", 6'3". So they're kind of built like you. They're not as thin as you anymore, but yeah, so you're a pretty good sized boy to be sitting in those cars, but I mean, you got it down. And what I meant like though, is when you're sleeping at all these parks and stuff, you just never have anybody roll up on you, the police or any or guys propositioning you?
No, that would be a new experience. No, but that has not happened at this point.
Yeah, well, you're quite lucky because, yeah, I mean, the few times I try and sleep in a car, it seems like I always get people bothering me. So I don't know. You must just be getting lucky. So you got there. I know when we talked, and I actually made a sizzle reel. I take our podcast and cut them down to maybe 10, 15 minutes. And I started off the last one, like where you actually were saying you were tired. Did you get some rest? So when you started off?
I did. I actually got a good, decent night's sleep. By the time I rolled into the race venue location, which I was concerned because I got there and there was nothing there. I'm used to seeing a race. You get there, they've got tents up and they're ready. They set up the night before and they're ready to go. Nothing. So then I thought, it's the wrong place. And I had an address, but they also had a GPS coordinate. So I hit the GPS coordinate and that took me around to a different place and no one was there also. So I was like, well, then I'll figure out the morning. Oh, no, actually, it was the morning. It was like 6. I woke up at like 6:30, 7 o'clock. And it's like the race is only a couple hours away. There's nobody here at both locations. I was getting a little bit concerned. And then, finally, though, they showed up and set up their base camp, basically, and the start-finish line. But, I got some good sleep and felt pretty refreshed when I got out there to start. And, of course, saw some people that I knew. It was really cool to see Craig and April out there. Mm-hmm. And they did pretty well. They did the 12-hour. April won for the 12-hour. She, I think she did maybe 32, 33 miles, and that was good for the win for the 12-hour. And then
nice.
Craig, I think, did 40 miles and got third. So they both podiumed in their races.
All right. And so then like I said, but you got there and got it on time. Did you have some time to get some stuff so you had a little bit of a setup or yourself?
This one, like the last 2 races that I did, they said you're completely self-supported. And I didn't come with anything the last 2 and was just hoping I could beg, borrow, and steal from my local friendly ultra runners if I needed stuff. But I think they were doing that more to be compliant, but they actually did have foods there. What they did at the last one, which is really cool, everything was individual packaged, like the individual little chip bags and individual the Little Debbie's cookies with the white cream in the middle, and everything just grab the package and go, so you didn't have to worry about contamination, whatever. This was I would say on their aid, it was more a minimalist, probably because of COVID-19. So there wasn't a whole lot of variety, but it was enough. And then Craig said, "Hey, Ed, you can use any of my stuff." He drove up and had a boatload of stuff on his table. And of course, the nice guy that he is said, "Anything what's mine is yours." And that was cool. He even brought his own big coolers for water and one for tailwind. So they had a decent setup there.
I'm laughing because when I was talking to Craig, he's like, you roll up with like a backpack or something. And he goes, and I roll up with my entire garage, and my wife makes fun of me. Like when he goes across years, he like brings everything. So when you're talking about that, it's like, yep, Craig was talking to that very situation, that very scenario. So, but you always live off the land. And then how was the weather when you guys first started out? Decent?
It was nice because we started at 9 a.m. It was still cool, and again, no humidity, so that was a nice change. And then the course, it was a pretty nice course, mostly flat. Had a mixture of crushed gravel, some areas where we ran across a grassy area, some pavement, and some just little bit of elevation changes, enough to break it up, and actually much better, as you know, having some little bit of change rather than completely flat. And so right off the bat, and it was also a lot of good tree cover. So there was only a few places where we really had true exposure, and we were in the shade for a lot of it. So that was good. But right off the bat, I started planning on my walk spots. And remember I said from our pre-race podcast, I was going to really discipline myself to go out a bit slower. And I did. I kept it
good.
only a couple times I think I went faster than an 11-minute mile, but mostly 11s, 12s to begin with. And then early on, I started taking my walk breaks. The teen little hill, climb up that, walk up that, like 3 spots on that 1 mile loop that I started taking walk breaks. And my pace was still, even with the walk breaks, was still 12-minute pace. I mean, my overall pace in 24 hours was a sub 13-minute pace.
Nice.
So this was really, I got, you know, when you do a race and everything all comes together, this was a race that happened. And even though I didn't win, I took second place. I am way more pleased with that second place finish than many wins I've had that have been like the win last week. I would say it was an easier win because it wasn't so much competition. This one had more competition, which we pushed each other always. And as you know from the race history stats, this is their 4th year, and they've only had one person.
We were looking at those results, and it was like, "Woo, what are you going into? Is it really rough?" It was just kind of this.
That does scare me when I see results and there's no 100-mile people. It's like, why? Like that was a big clue for that Three Sisters race in Tennessee. There was a very good reason why there was only one guy. But this particular time, it was just they just didn't have the competition. That's why there weren't more. So it's a good race, and I paced well and ran my own race, and the heat just really didn't get to me. I slowed it down a little bit, backed off the pace a little, kept myself hydrated, and poured in the water, the cold water on my head, and that was pretty much my cooling system with my Jester. It's funny because people will always comment, "Man, isn't that hat hot?" And I'm so used to it that I don't really notice it. But I did. So I had I always have like an undershirt that's a little tighter, so I don't have the chafing issue. Because that's it's not fun to have those really sore bloody nipples.
I do the same thing.
And then I had my outer shirt was a ultra race shirt, long sleeve shirt. And in the night, finally I took that shirt off. So I just put my undershirt on, took my hat off, and it was much cooler running with that hat. So it definitely does add heat. I just get really used to it. And of course in Badwater, we took ice. I took ice up into my crew does for me. So I paced it well. The course. So the race director, really nice guy, young guy, Josh, and his wife, he said, "Okay, guys, just going to tell you right off the bat, you're going to get different reading on your Garmin. We're calling it a mile, and that's what we're going to do. Each loop was a mile." So I went around the first mile, and it was 1.03. So on paper, if you look at 1.03, like, that's barely anything. That's nothing to worry about. It's just 0.03. And that's maybe cool if you're only doing a couple miles, but if you're doing a 50K, now you're actually doing an extra mile. If you're doing 100 miles, that's 103 miles. So my Garmin showed 115.35 versus their official distance was 112. I'll take it because we're all equally competing on the same course. And I haven't looked up my stats, but I'm sure the last time that I did 112 or 115 miles in a 24-hour race, it had to be 2-3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago. I'll have to look it up and see.
Yeah, I can pull it up here.
Coming into this race, having ran a bunch of races in a row and just having done a 30-hour race the weekend before, it logically doesn't make sense that I would have such a good race. But I think everything came into place. And as I've experienced this when I did the record for the most marathons in a year, and then I did the record for the most 100 miles in a year, and you know how this works too, like during the multi-day, your body does adapt on the fly. And you actually, if you don't abuse it too badly, and if you take plenty of time to recover during the week, which I only did, I think 9 miles all week. And I'm on a streak, so I do try and get at least 2 miles a day. So maybe it was 11 or 12 miles, I don't know. And it was all power walking. I went out, my wife and I would go out and walk at she's like a 17-minute pace because she's recovering from a little bit of a knee injury. And I'd maybe do 13 and a half, 14, 15-minute miles when I do it on my own, but minimal. And even though I was tired when we had our pre-race podcast Friday, I was just literally just worn out, just tired, physically tired, just hadn't been getting enough sleep. But my body was
noticeable.
ready.
That's why I asked you how you're feeling. One of the things one of the topics I was going to, and you kind of touched on it, was I think, and I had this pop in my head and I write down notes, is that for you, this is like your fourth race, I guess. I'm terrible with the math. I think what happened is, like, especially like with your pacing and stuff, is you're finally like getting back into the flow of it, and how, oh yeah, this is how I do these races. And that same thing goes on like in cross country and a 5K even. The first couple races out, you just have to get I mean, it sounds insane but again, like I say, a 5K is a small experiment. These 24-hour races are big experiments. And so what was happening those first few, you're kind of out of practice and you're making mistakes that, even though they're mistakes, you just don't know them deep down. And they're mistakes that me and you have seen tons and tons of people do over and over and over. And I guess at this race, we don't have to go into it. There's a guy out there rolling along, and, I always tell people always like, I said this all the time, I was having a great race until mile whatever. And I'm like, but it's not a great race until you finish. And so I think that you definitely, have got your groove back, and, you're kind of getting back to, oh yeah, this is how I do these things. Interestingly, talking about that, and usually how people have to get into, do a few prep races and then have a good race, is amazingly this past weekend at that Monaco race where the guy crushed that 5K. Didn't really do too many races before that, but we had a young man who came in fourth, and we won the 800 in the World Championships. And the guy broke the American record. He'd been around for 30 years. But there's another kid from Kansas who came in fourth, and he just got out of college. But what's amazing is he hasn't run a race since February. He showed up at this Diamond League and set a PR, and now is the 7th best American all time. And he hadn't run a race in anger for 10 months. Kind of the opposite of what we're talking about, but interesting. But, then again, these guys, have coaches and professionals, and that's what they do, where, like we're talking about with you, you're working and doing all these stuff. So yeah, I think that's kind of the thing. I kind of pulled up your results here, and you had a lot of like little 104, 105s. The last time you got over 110 was in March of 2018. You did this Manacito Cold Spring 24-hour.
That's right.
That was 113, and Run 113. For Kids 112. So yeah, it was about 2018. Yeah, here like Celtic, you did 121. So spring of 2018, you were still able to go out and do those 15. Yeah, that was a crazy time when you went up and did Auburn on January 13th. It's 116 on that track. I remember it was freezing cold and foggy there. Mm-hmm. And then you rolled out the Bakersfield the following weekend and did 121. Yeah, so it's been a good 2+ years since you've been cracking that 105 mark. So
I've had, and I don't know if it's just something with my body. I don't think I have any special skills or abilities per se, but I've had many, many times where my second race in a row, 100 in a row, the second one is actually a better performance than the one the week before.
Yeah.
And it's counterintuitive, because you think, okay, well, I'd be worn out. And usually it takes more than a week to recover from a 100-mile race. But I think I did that 1 year where I did all the marathons in a year, and then the year of doing all the hundreds. And typically I'll do 15 to 2500s every year anyway. So I think I've just gotten my body used to that. It's like if you and I went to go work out in the field as a migrant worker, we'd be dead, in 3 hours, be like, oh man, I can't handle this. But yet guys who do it day after day after day, 8, 10, 12 hours a day, it's like, it's just going to work for them. Their bodies are used to it.
I'm a similar. I think there's two different types of people, that, and I'm the same way. Like, I'm a workhorse. I found that out early in my running career, where some of my best times happen a day or two after I ran a race. Like, I ran like a 33-minute 10K the day after I'd run a track meet where I run a 1 mile and 2 mile on Friday. And then I ran a 10K on Saturday. So for me, and part of it was because, and I think probably it's also because we're more endurance-based athletes, i.e., if you did a muscle biopsy on us, we don't got any fast twitch muscles.
Slow twitch.
We're 98%. The slow twitch are white and the fast twitch are red. They did a biopsy on us, And so I think because we don't have any natural speed, we have to race to be able to go fast. Where other people who are, say, fast twitch type athletes, they need more training and recovery, and then they can fly. It's kind of the old adage, like a cheetah can run 70 miles an hour, but if he doesn't catch a prey, he's got to lay there for another, all day to recharge. Whereas a wolf can only run 30 miles an hour, but he can chase the deer for all day long. And so it's different body types. And I've always found that my first race usually sucks. I need a couple races. And even when it gets to so far an extreme, people are like, that just doesn't make sense. But yeah, I think some people like me and you, we get stronger with the more work we put in, and other people can put in some work and then that's it. And they put in, and so it's just, that variety. But I definitely, when you're talking about that, it definitely comes up. So yeah, so you guys, and so you were kind of, where were you like during the day? Were there guys in front of you, or how was the race unfolding?
Well, it was kind of hard to tell because, if you have someone that passes you and okay, there's 6 and 12 and 24, so who's in the 24, but then when they're passing you, you don't know if they just took a break at their aid station and then they're not really looping you, so you never really know. For me, I just keep it moving, and I didn't take any breaks at all, but eventually they started posting some results, and I was pretty much fourth position, but there was a group of us, 4 of us, who were kind of close, and then there was a big gap, and then everybody else pretty much. So it looked like it was going to be the 4 contenders, and the other guy, Ryan, who was also a Ultra Red Team member, he had his short sleeve Ultra Red Team shirt on. Anyway, and he was the one that I was most concerned about. I actually went into this race thinking, if I can, I was sure I could get 100 in the 24, but I was thinking if I could podium, I'll be happy with the 3rd place, because I saw my competition. Like, I did a race with him, Elijah Bristol, in Oregon a year or 2, maybe 2 years ago. He won the race with 123, and I think I was 3rd, maybe, or 4th with 108. So I already knew off the bat, and everybody else was there, as far as I knew. This is their first race for the season because of COVID, and this is my 5th in a 6-week time span. So I wasn't expecting to do that well. But then the other 2 guys that were ahead of us, didn't really know them, but they had some decent stats. And then Ryan, I passed him up finally about 10 hours in, and I don't know if the heat had gotten to him early in the day. Maybe I started seeing him. I'd come around, and he was sitting in his chair at his aid station. And I come around again, and he's still sitting there. And I come around again, like 3 or 4 loops, and I knew that's it. And of course, a couple more times, and then boom, it's like cleared out. His whole his easy up tent, his table, everything is gone. It's like, okay, he went home. And that happens, so that put me into 3rd. Actually, I'd already passed him up, so I was in 3rd, but he was still a contender until he left. And you never know, because you can't, say, oh, that he's toast, he's out of it. Because sometimes when people get a good rest, and they kind of recuperate a bit, and they come out, and he's got some speed. So I wasn't counting him out until he was out of the race. So it's like, okay, now I know I got a podium if I can just hang on. And then there was this other guy who was in 2nd, and I was, kind of back and forth with him, very close until, I don't know, it probably was 14 to 16 hours in. They'd post up the little printout, maybe every couple hours, 2 or 3 hours, and we could stop and look and see where we were mileage-wise. And I eventually did pass him up. The guy who was in the lead, really strong runner, cool guy, really cool guy. Dark skin, but I think maybe of Indian descent, possibly. Sir Vannon.
I would destroy the name. I saw the name.
Yeah.
So,
but really, really strong. And so it came down to the last 4 to 6 hours, and I started to gain a little bit on the 2nd place guy that I passed up. But this Sir Vannon guy, did a really smart thing, which I would do the same thing if I was in his position. He had more speed than I had as far as the pacing I was doing. So I'd come around, he'd be in his chair, I'd pass him by, and then he'd do two loops. And I was maybe doing a 12 and a half, 13-minute pace. He'd do it probably 11-minute pace. And then he'd sit down. Anyway, and then I'd, come around and pass him. And he knew all he had to do was maintain that, because he had like 3 or 4 miles on me. And he knew, at a certain point, if he just keeps that up, at a certain point, it becomes impossible for me to catch him. And so, so he was doing that, and smart strategy. Didn't need to overextend himself, but also didn't, want to take too long of a break, because you never know what can happen. And so, so he won with 115, which really was 118. And of course, I had 112, and the guy behind me 108. So worked out pretty well. And I felt Saturday was my birthday. I turned 58, and I felt it was a good birthday present for myself, because it really. Although I've been saying that, I think I can still compete with these young bucks, but it really showed me that I've still got some race miles in my legs. I still am capable of being competitive to a certain degree. But one thing that was really cool is.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No,
I was going to say one thing that's really cool. All right, one thing that was really cool was. There was a guy there, Eugene. I saw him at a race, one of the other earlier races I did. That guy is 85 years old, and he goes out to these, and he'll do 50 miles. That's his goal, to do 50 miles in every state. And he's got like, if you go on ultra sign up, it's like 500 ultras that he's done. And, the majority of those are marathon, 50K, 50 miles, but really cool guy. I want to be alive at 85 for one, but this guy's quality of life, just tough as nails. Like, who's our for Dickey?
Bill Dickey. Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? He's 77.
Oh yeah, Bill Dickey.
Bill Dickey. That guy, tough as nails, 77, and just those two guys. I look at those guys, honestly, they impress me much more than the young bucks that are fast, because you see them come and go. A lot of times their running career is very short-lived, and you never see them around. But these guys have been doing this for decades and show up at these races, and they're there to enjoy themselves. They're walking the whole time, but they still get it done, so that's what impresses me and makes me want to, stay with it.
Well, Bill Dickey, he does the Avila 50K 50 miler every year. And what they do there is they give you the bib, like whoever's done it the longest gets bib number 1. And so Bill was probably like bib 2 or 3. I got a guy here in Bakersfield, Bob Moses, an ultra legend who's been around, and he one time had bib 5 or 6. He hasn't gone over the past few years just because he just wanted to deal with it. But so that means Bill's however long Avila 50 miler has been around, like for 40 years or something, since the early 80s. And Bill goes out there every year, and he used to start off with Hal Winton, that was the race director of Angel's Crest, and Hal was like bib number 1. But Hal was getting up there. He passed away a few years ago. But, Hal was up until his late 80s. He was race directing Angel's Crest. And they would start like at midnight so he could get the whole 50 in. So very, very fun to see that. And, definitely is the way to go. So on this, that's what I was going to ask him. Just get sidetracked. So this was 100 what? Number 1? What number?
This is, all right. So they gave me bib number 7. And I modified it just a little bit.
Oh, okay.
This was raced 100 miler number 187. And I think for my podiums, it's like, 113 or 114 podium finishes I've had now. Probably for a second place finish, probably 37th or 38th second place finish.
Yeah, cool.
Something like that.
187 is a famous number.
Well, it's in the penal code, it's murder.
Yeah. Snoop Dogg has a song, 187 is the case they gave me. It's here in California penal code 187. So just 13 away from that 200. And speaking of that, so like I said, you got the groove. I like races like the pancake flat races, like you were talking about. The problem with those is then you have to make a decision when you're going to walk and run. And we as humans are terrible at making decisions. So I kind of like courses where they're not like them, but when there's a hill, you can go, okay, I'm going to walk there, or there's like some grassy area. I won't run on grass because it's all lumpy. And so it's nice. Or like, I'll be like, okay, like across the years, there's that awesome paved part. And I'll often run down that because I'm like, woohoo, I'm on the road. And then of course there's other parts that, like that little notorious hill. So with that, you got the 187. Now what's for the future? What's going on? You got anything like I know you got some races, but kind of the calendar kind of gets empty here for a bit. So you got any other plans?
Well, this weekend I committed to my wife that I would stay and we're going to do a garage sale. And then we're going to somewhere along the coast and get ourselves an Airbnb and just relax, enjoy the beach. Good. And spend some quality time together. So no racing this weekend. And because what they say, happy wife equals happy life. So working on that. And then on the 29th, I haven't signed up for it yet, but there's a race back in Georgia. It's Maria Spring Fling 24-hour. So I got to look into that a little bit more. But okay. Labor Day weekend, which is 2 weeks from this current weekend, is the Lotse 72-hour race with Wyatt Hochmeyer. And so I'm signed up for both the 72-hour and the 100-mile. So as I explained in the podcast previously, so I'll start in the 72. I'll put a bib on for the 72 and, run my race for that, and then get some sleep just before the 100-mile starts, and then put on a 100-mile bib, run the 100-mile race. And when I finish that, put that bib aside and put my 72-hour bib back on and finish off whatever I can do. So that'll be fun. I'm looking forward to that. That's 2 races combined into one. And ultimately, it would be really fun to actually win a 100-mile race inside of a 72-hour race. That would be a new one for me. So that's on the Labor Day weekend. And then the weekend after that, there's races coming up that I still don't know what's going on with them, because of COVID. But looks like possibly on 9/11, there is a race called American Heroes 24-hour in Colorado. And even though it's a little bit of a higher elevation, the course looks very simple. It's like, I think, a 1-mile loop and fairly flat. Mm-hmm. And that's in Longmont, Colorado. After that, okay, so the weekend of September 19, I'm really torn because I really, really want to support Craig and his race. So, but it's further. It's up near Sacramento, whereas there's Blue, which is right here, less than an hour from me, and also has a 67-hour, which is a hybrid from what typically was a 72-hour. And that's kind of my specialty, the multi-day. It's my sweet spot. It's 48 to 48-hour to 6-day. And I usually do really well at those. So, and I'm, looking for a win. I'd like to get a win there. And darn, Ray Sanchez signed up for Craig's race, and he'll beat the pants off of me every year at Badwater. He does. He's just a really, really strong runner. Yeah, most definitely. But
have you heard a word about Blue? Have you heard anything about Blue?
Not a word. And I honestly, I wish them the best. But I don't see them being able to pull it off. I really don't, with having the cabins that everybody stays in and the cafeteria eating. I mean, they can modify that with the eating so they don't have it in the cafeteria, but cabins, that's part of what the Blue experience is about, is staying in those.
Well, there's also nowhere to stay near there either.
That's true, because there's nothing in Mountain Center. There's nothing around other than Palm Springs,
which is a long haul and probably pricey. Yes. One of the things, because I just now going back, I kind of like talking about the aid station and how individually wrapped. One of the things that we've had that kind of COVID's going to make better is aid stations in trail races, ultras, whatever, have been pretty bad, gross anyways. I mean, I'm not a germaphobe, and I don't get sick. I kind of like Adam Kroll always says, because like if I drop something on the ground, I'll pick it up and eat it. I don't even know. I mean, I pretty much, but when you really get down to it, when you're at races and people are like the M&Ms or all these things, and just when you think about, I mean, I don't care, but when you think about it, I actually one year did get, I won't say which race, I did get really sick. I left the race early, not feeling well, came home and got food poisoning. It was like sick for a couple of days laying out on my patio. But when you were talking about that, it reminded me. And then when you kind of brought back, I was like, oh yeah, about the whole aid station. And I generally don't eat out of the aid stations, but yeah, like, especially like when I used to do trail races and I'm way in the back, by the time I get there, like I've never eaten a peanut butter and jelly sandwich in a race, because they're usually stale as hell by the time I get there. But then when you also think like, wow, this has been over, sorry there, stupid phone. There's been races, where you're thinking, wow, how many people, 300 people came through here, pawn this food?
And think about it. If it's a trail race, we got to do our business out on the trail. There's not porta potties out there. So we're not cleaning up after ourselves. We got these nasty hands, and we stick them in this humidity bowl of M&Ms. But, it's one of those things. It's like you do what you do. It's just like they're professional men and women, but very high level professional women who they're just dropping their pants and peeing right on the side of the course. Now, in their professional life, oh my God, you would, they're CEOs and executives, but what? The life
but one
you
thing
live
that'll
on
be
a
nice
trail,
possibly is after this whole COVID, instead of having the bowl of M&Ms, maybe we'll go buy the Halloween candies, and just have the little fun packs. Yeah, because it would be kind of nice. Another thing, just because I kind of write notes and I wanted to catch on stuff. Big pro tip for all you ultra runners out there. Runners, I laughingly say, because almost every ultra runner I see starts walking, and you guys are all terrible at walking. Yeah, I said it, because when I'm walking past you going, learn how to walk. Look at Ed, he knows how to walk. And but a pro tip is walk with your spouse. If you just cannot get yourself to go out and walk as training, here's a sneaky way to do it so you can save face, though you shouldn't. You should be honored and proud to go out and walk like you do after every 100. You walk on Monday or Tuesday, the day after race, is walk your spouse. Like you go out and walk with Martha. I walk with Blanca. And like when I did my first 100, I actually started walking my kids either to the bus stop or to school, just to get those extra miles, the time on your feet, and that all adds up. You can't be a 100-mile multi-day racer and just go out and do these beautiful 2-3 hour runs where you're floating along like the Kenyan or the Ugandan guy who just broke the record in the 5K. You sometimes just got to be a mule, a pack mule. In fact, and you're walking, with your spouse, carry extra crap for them, or just, but like I said, I often will come home from a really hard workout or like from a race, and I'll walk in the door and go, Blanc, you want to go for a walk? Because I want to keep her healthy, and I'll be dead dog tired. But I'm like, hey, this is great training. So when you're talking about going out and walking with Martha, and, it doesn't even matter the pace, or like I do a lot of meetup club hikes. And I always tell, and everybody always knows at the hikes, like if someone's having a problem, I'll always go back and walk with them. One, I'm being a nice guy, but two, you got to practice doing those 18, 20-minute miles, because someday you might actually have to do them. I think you must have got a call too. I had a call. Yeah. But it's great practice, because you got to practice walking 17, 18-minute miles. Like, so some of these people, when you're in races and you watch them walking, you can tell they've never walked in their lives. I mean, I've got good friends who are fast marathoners, and I'll walk them into the ground. They'll only walk with me for 5 or 6 miles in a race and be beat up for, so everything takes practice. So good stuff on that. I guess not too much else. What's that?
Two things I just took notes I wanted to cover is, one, I do agree with you with the whole COVID-19. This is another problem you have when you come into an aid station is, like, I want to take stuff, but I don't want to eat it there. I want to eat it on the run, but really it's on the walk.
Yeah, that's
so
what
I'm looking for a cup, but if they're cupless, then I sometimes will pack with me some Ziploc baggies just because I can grab one. But with the individual packs, boom, boom, boom. You just grab stuff.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, you got some garbage, stick it in your pocket when you get to the next aid station, get rid of the garbage. But it just is so much easier because you're trying to grab like open thing of chips and then you're losing half of them.
My dogs would love to follow me leaving an aid station when they don't have cups because I'm just dropping shit and I'm not picking up. So I'm just dropping, you know, Cheetos and whatever, chips and M&Ms. And because, well, I don't like to bend over and pick up anything unless it's at least a dollar bill. And that's one of the reasons you're successful and I'm successful in races just finishing them actually is we just basically roll through an aid station, boom, 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 and leave. We don't stand there and graze. You see so many people like, oh, you know, because then you got to make up all that time and people just don't realize it. So yeah, definitely it's a good thing.
And that was the other thing I wanted to talk about is we both have the same philosophy on the benefits of a good, strong power walk, and it's a skill. And any skill requires you to develop the skill and practice the skill to hone it and to continue to do it to keep that skill sharp. So I try and convert people. Well, you know, I always try and get people to come over to the dark side of ultra marathons, marathoners to ultra marathon. But I'm also always trying to convert people or convince them how important it is to get the power up. Because look at the numbers. Let's say you could divide it up to where half of your 100-mile is walking and half is running. More likely, depending on the type of course, it might be much more on the walking side. But let's just say, make it easy, half of it's running, half of it's walking. Let's say you can run at 50 miles. If you're running, you're doing it at 11 or 12 minute pace. That's a good run pace for 100 miles. And so people are thinking, man, if I could shave off a minute per mile off of my pace, you know, I could really do a lot better than 100. But then it's like, well, no, think about those numbers. You're only running 50 miles, not 100 miles. You're walking 50 of it. Now, if you shaved a minute off, that's great. You just bought yourself 50 minutes of time. But let's say the 50% of the time, the 50 miles that you're walking, let's say you're doing an 18-minute mile because you don't know how to walk properly. It's a skill. You could easily, without a lot of work, shave that down to 15-minute
or
pace.
16.
It doesn't take much, even 16.
Yeah. And that's doubles your return.
Doubled or tripled the benefit, and it's not that difficult. Like you'd have to do a lot of, you know, maybe speed work to try and. But people, walking isn't sexy. You know, running 100. That's the sexy thing. It's like, okay, and you could stick with that, or you could be smart and say, I'm going to end up walking. I might as well have a good, strong power walk that's going to be another gear. And that's what I love about the multi-day. You and I know this. We've seen it over and over. We've done it ourselves, that you can shift into that extra gear that a lot of people don't have, and you can just all day long just walk and walk and walk and walk.
And what I think what also happens though is, you know, we're always obsessed with the elite and the heroes in any sport, but but when I'm watching LeBron James, I'm like, yeah, I can't do that. Well, LeBron's 6'9", but even Stephen Curry, who's actually a normal sized guy, actually he's considered small, and he's like your height. But even like you see him, you go, yeah, I can't shoot threes like that. But for some reason in running, we see Zach Bitters and these guys crushing 100 milers in 12, 13 hours, or Camille Herron, and they're running pretty much the whole way. In fact, I just found an old video of Camille finishing her world record and you're in there somewhere, probably Desert Solstice or up at Riverbank when we were there, and we saw Courtney break it. And Courtney was running 9-minute miles the entire way, but when she's Courtney. But also you got to realize, like, at a 100-miler, when you see Zach or Rob Carr run, they're only running for 12 or 13 hours. I can run 12 or 13 hours. Not a lot of people can run for 26, 30, 40 hours. And so that's one thing you've got to go, okay, those guys, yes, they're running hundreds. You aren't going to run 100. You're just out there. No one can run for 24 hours. I mean, Courtney did it almost that day, but then when Camille set the world record with 165 miles, she took some breaks. You know, she's had an infamous Taco Bell and beer, and sat down. So she didn't run 24 hours. Bob Hearn, who crushes it all the time, he has a walk-run strategy. One of the things I was going to say too about walking was, when I first met you, I could keep up with you, and you're a good walker, but I could walk with you for hours. And then the way you got good at walking is you had that injury a couple years ago when you were wearing the boot or whatever. And ever since then, you're way too strong a walker for me. Like, I can go out and I often tell you, I'll go, I can walk with you for an hour or two, but you just wear me out. I say now you're like a big dog on a leash, and I can only hold that leash for so long. And then I know, like, could I walk with you? Like in the old days, I could do 3 or 4 hours with you and I'd be okay. Now I have to limit it to like an hour or two, because if I don't, I'll ruin my race. So like I could walk with you from 2 to 3 in the morning, but back in the day I could walk with you from 2 to 5 in the morning. But and that's, again, just practice. And yeah, you got that walk. And then of course, and you can walk and look graceful. I think the problem with walking too is we get that silly race walking sport that just made walking so dorky. But you know what? You watch Anthony Culpepper and Yolanda Holder and yourself walk. It's a thing of beauty. It's poetry in motion. It isn't ridiculous looking. I remember one time they were talking about race walking. They said, race walking, it's like a contest on who can whisper the loudest. Get it? Like,
yeah, that race walking, I'd get red flagged because Bob Davidson used to be really quite involved in the race walking world. Yeah. And they have that peculiar, specific gait that you have to do just right. And you have to keep
contact with both feet. You have to get contact. And I actually, one time when I was still a 3-hour marathoner, trained for months to do the race walk. So I thought maybe this would be my ticket to fame. And I went to a 15K down in Los Angeles. I went by the first judge, got a yellow card for like creeping. I was lifting. And by the time I made it a mile, and I was DQ'd because you get like 3 cards and you're out. Now, talking about Bob Davidson, he was a great fast marathon back in the day. He showed up at a race walk race in New York City, had never really done it, checked out the technique, and he walked his way onto the national team. If we hadn't boycotted 1980 Olympics, he would have been in the Olympics in race walking. He was that good. He went to Europe, but he just had the flexibility and whatnot to do that walk, and really impressive. So yeah, it's definitely one of those things. Yeah.
Speaking of Olympics, 2 things I'll mention. One is, if you take out cycling, the longest distance besides cycling in the Olympics is not the marathon. Yeah, it's the 50K walk. Oh yeah, race walk. So those guys are like knocking out sub 6 minute miles. Oh yeah, walking. It's like, it's phenomenal what they're able to do. So that, but I also wanted to mention, of course, about my virtual run, Chase the Jester.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up before we leave. It's behind me. There you are.
I see it. Yep.
Yep. And that people can continue joining that, and definitely would love to have them come. The race across Tennessee ends at the end of this month, so it'd be great to jump into your race. And what are the different distances you guys have?
There's the bronze medal. So we kind of fashioned it after the not boycotted. That was different, but the rescheduled Olympics to next year in Japan. So we've got the bronze medal distance, which is 220 miles. And then there's the silver, and that goes from Golden Gate to California, Nevada, Lake Tahoe border.
Yeah, it's the Olympics, just the Winter Olympics, Squaw Valley. Basically. Yeah.
And so and then the silver one actually goes from Squaw Valley down to the LA Olympic Coliseum. That's 492 miles. And then we have the Golden State Coastal, which goes from the Mexico-California border all the way up to the Golden Gate Bridge. And that's like 692 maybe, I'm not sure. And then, of course, we've got the Triple Crown for people who combine all 3 of them. And then we give out, in the shape of California, there's a bronze, a silver, and a gold medal. And then if you do the Triple Crown, you get all 3 of those, plus you get a Jester hat inside of a crown. And I must say so myself, my daughter, Andrea, is my co-RD, and she was the one who designed them. And I think they came out really nice. And she's just started shipping them out.
I've seen some online. Kit, who we know well, she posted a photo of the stuff. I'll in the show notes put a link, and plus I have a code noise10 to sign up. And I've been doing the Triple Crown, and I'm probably, I think, 60-70% done with the Triple Crown. So definitely would love to get out there and do it. I was jokingly with Ed talking about when he was like maybe not being able to find races, that his race that goes along the coast kind of is following the missions. And I said, hey, how about doing an FKT from all the missions? And I can't remember how many missions were there. I don't even know.
21.
Yeah, 21 missions. and they're all about a marathon apart. So I thought, hey, you should do a race that would be roads, and still maybe put that together, possibly just out of a.
I would love that, because it's a road event. All these trail FKTs, it's like, no, I just have no interest in them. For leisurely, to maybe go out and hike them for fun, but to really push, I'm just not a trail runner. You know, I've learned one thing. I know my strengths, I know my weaknesses, and of course, anything you're weak on, you just practice it more, you'll get stronger. But I also like to enjoy what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And trail stuff with a lot of elevation just beats my body up too much. It's much gentler on, and we talked about this in a previous podcast. It's much gentler on my body to do a hard pavement road race than this is
a consistent surface. Yeah, it's a consistent surface. Yeah. And the thing too is, like, I tell this, and trail runners it's all about the trail, dude. But you know what? If you like running, you should run on the roads, because you get to run the whole time. When you do trails, you don't get to run. You're going uphill, you're not running. And sometimes the downhill's too technical that you're not running. So if you're actually truly like to run like me and you do, get on the roads or on a track, because then you can run. Get on a 400-meter track and you can run for 24 hours like Zach Bitter or whatever. I mean, and so that's kind of, but it's neither here nor there. But yeah, I'm the same way, that I just enjoy. And I kind of been egging you on about doing that, because I would like to set it up and help you, of course, and then kind of try and promote it, so people will go, hey, there is this other sort of FKT, a roads FKT. Michael Wardian has been doing some back east. He did this. They have like these measurement stones out there in some of the states, probably when they laid them out way back in the olden days, like George Washington was a surveyor. So they put out these stones. He's been doing FKTs where he's running from one stone, the four corners of the stones of like Delaware, or running across Delaware. And then, of course, Laz's race across Tennessee is huge, and a lot of these. So, in Badwater, of course, is all roads. So I really kind of like to, it's kind of like an untapped market thing where, you don't have to go out and get on the trails. And also, the thing too, and we talked about this in other podcasts, is us going and doing ultras on the trails is all cool and stuff, but we're also imposing our will and our, privilege to put on these trail races and knocking people who aren't, the horse people, the cycling people, like me, a poor kid who got to go in the woods once a year, once a summer. And we're just going, we're going to put on a 50-mile race. Isn't this wonderful and great? And like, no, not necessarily. You're going out there and you're trashing the place. I mean, I'm just saying, I don't want but I'm just saying, this is all my opinions, but having it like where like, hey, there's the roads, and I don't understand, especially like, we talk about with sponsors and companies, there's a lot more people out there just hitting the pavement than there are hitting the trails, and so it would be great to kind of just promote that. Well, and maybe, or even like one of these weekends you don't have 100, let's, pick out some 100-mile distance in California, go kind of hand in hand with your Jester, Chase the Jester, and kind of tell people, okay, I'm going to run from San Diego to wherever or wherever
San Francisco.
You want to run.
Yeah.
You can come up here to Bakersfield and run the Fresno.
Well, you know what? There's that
there used to be a race.
The
McDonald's.
The 135 from Bakersfield to Madeira, to the two Ronald McDonald houses. And I did that a couple of times. It was car crewed. I actually love the idea of doing a mission run, because not only is it road surface, you're car crewed the whole time. So you have a rolling aid station.
Yeah.
And the other cool thing is, if we promoted that, if I had like a Spot or the Garmin InReach, people would know I'm at. It's like, come out and do some miles with me, especially, during the night, I could use some company, and that would be really fun for people to get involved, and we could do some fundraising aspects of it.
Here's another tie-in that just popped in my head as a former educator, and I have a lot of runners or teachers. Well, they're doing remote teaching, plus parents are having to teach at home. California, the kids all learn the mission thing. Wouldn't it be great?
In middle school,
this? Yeah, but we can try and get a hold of it and make it as some kind of educational thing, like follow the Jester running the missions, and just contact whatever grade that is, 5th or 6th grade, when they do the mission report, and say, hey, there's this guy, he's running from mission to mission, and pay kind of like trying to incorporate it into people's lesson plans. So that's, kind of, it's possible, just contact. Yeah, we can just have one teacher who's doing it. We don't have to all of a sudden like, let's get every teacher in California to follow it. And that's just another thing that I think would be fun. So like I said, you've got things and responsibilities that, but maybe one of these weekends, because we're thinking it's 21 missions. They're like 30 miles apart. It's like 600 miles, right? Or
right.
We think
it's not quite as much as that, but yeah, it's I think between 450 and 600 if we were to sit down and look at them all.
Yeah.
But what would be really cool also, as I do public speaking, I would love to set up to where I do a presentation at each. That would be timing wise to be a little bit difficult to coordinate.
Yeah.
But to do a motivational talk at each of the missions or something like that along the way, someplace, shoe store or whatever. There's possibilities there. I'm certainly open to it. That would be a lot of fun.
Well, like I said, I tell people often with this podcast, they often say, don't leave it in the hallway. So we kind of just hash out ideas, and Ed fully admitted in the I Run Far that about 80-90% of the stuff that comes out of his head, he doesn't achieve. I thought that was pretty.
I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
I have no problem setting a big goal.
Yeah.
And then if I don't achieve, it's like, okay, so I put it out there. It didn't happen. But then the times it does happen, it's like, well, I didn't limit myself, did I? Because I could have said, I usually will do that too. Like in a 24-hour race, if I have a goal, I usually say at least, and then I'll put a number. I want to do at least 110 or whatever, because the way our brain works, if I were to say going to race, 110, now that figure, that number is kind of in my head, and my body and brain know 110, the race is over. Why?
Yes.
Because I programmed it.
You see that all the time. You see people all the time. They get to a number and then they're done. And it's in a timed event, it's a terrible concept. I always just go, the only number you need to know in a 48-hour race is 48 hours.
That is right.
And that's how I got a podium third place by 60 yards in a 48, because I was racing for 48 hours. And thankfully, I guess for me and you, people don't have that mindset, and that's the way we can sneak up on them, and they go, okay, I'm gonna get the 110 or whatever, and I'm gonna go home. And like, okay.
Or they'll set a big goal and they see that they're not going to be able to accomplish it. Yes. And then they're just done. It's like, okay, well, I'm done. It's like, readjust. It's okay. Hey, good for you. You set a outrageous goal. You're probably not going to get it. Okay, adjust it down. I saw when I was doing that Southern Discomfort race, they had every 10th of a mile, they had these little phrases. And one of them was, if plan A doesn't work, there's 25 more letters in the alphabet. Yeah. It's like, brilliant. Because
that's a line that's a line you've told me many times. I've heard you say that same line. Like, I got plan A, B, C, go down the list.
Yeah. And if I run out of letters, there's double X, double Y, double Z, you can keep going and going and going.
That's something I need to work on a little better. But I also have a kind of a concept of, if things are just really not going well and I'm just not focused, I will bail just to live for another day. So it's kind of a Hobson's choice. So, but in fact, I'm getting real antsy about.
Well, I was just going to say, tagging on to that's been a difficult concept for me to bail. But I did that 24-hour race 2 or 3 weeks ago, and knew I was not likely going to.
And it's paid off dividends.
It really has, because my next 2 races, I dropped from the 24 to the 12 and got 51.6, I think it was, which is okay. I'll take it. But I saved myself. I didn't beat myself into the ground. And the next race, I won this race last week, this past weekend. I had a really, really good outcome. So I think it sometimes, like you said, also that race another day.
And also that race that you were in Georgia, not only do you only have a certain amount of mental capital to spend, though you do have an amazing mental capacity to do races, but that race, also the conditions with the rain and the mud, you could slip and fall and pull something, even if it's minor, and be out of commission. And that's my first rule. I always say, stay healthy, be boring, not epic. Meaning when I'm in a race and conditions go to hell in a handbasket, like I was doing that crazy race. I enjoyed it, actually, the Pirates Cove race down in San Diego. I did it 2 years ago, and there was snow on half the course. And like when you go up that big crazy hill, well, like you go across, you start there at the campground and you run across the thing.
They go up
the little bridge thing, the big long dirt road that goes across the lakes. As soon as you got to the end of that, it was snow all the way to the big hill. the big hill they have in the race. And then on the other side, and that was all muddy. And then on the other side, it was either mud or snow. And then it was snow all the way to the turnaround and back. Well, by the end of the day, it was a mud fest, slushy. And I was supposed to do the 24, but I realized, like, it's dark, it's slippery, it's muddy. This is just not going to be smart. I could end up I could end up getting hurt and not do what I want to do, which I found out when I had that grease fall, which I didn't know was happening. So it's kind of like, the old adage, when you see something and it's just going to be a bad idea, maybe walk away from it. So sounds exciting. Like I said, I'm really glad that, you had a good race, and I think things are going. I'm really glad that you're staying home next weekend. I'm sure other people, including your family, are look forward to that, and, just see how it's going. I think this race you just did kind of shows you that when things finally settle down and the world gets back to not normal, but to whatever it's going to be, and we can start going on ultra sign up and just signing up for races, and then you can pursue those other goals. And I think you've now gone out and proven to yourself and to that, like, okay, this is, I can tell just in your energy and how you look that, you're back in the swing of things. And I think, again, the old Ed would have been like, well, gosh darn it, I was saying I was going to do 10 of them. I'm going to go off and do 10 of them. Well, went and did 4 or 5 of them. You proved your point. You're good. Now let's, focus on some training, focus on just other things, and focus on getting people to come out and do the Chase the Jester around California. Really want people to try and come and do that. I think that'd be a good thing for everyone. And when you're doing that, you're also helping out Ed. It's, they've got it as a business concept to help him with his racing and stuff like that. So everything's sounding good. I've been really enjoying these, and we may not talk this week if you're going off. In fact, going off and spending some family time, which I think is good. And we'll get back sometime in the preceding week. Yeah, we'll definitely talk to you before you go to the Lotse thing. We'll talk, I'm sure, before that. So anything else you needed to bring up, or you got it covered?
No, I think we pretty much covered it all. And I just want to encourage everyone who's listening to our podcast to, okay, so we don't have any races in California. That's completely shut down because of COVID. And maybe you can't travel outside of the state. That's kind of pricey. But set some goals for your own, like these virtual races, and we don't call mine a race, we call it a virtual run, but still.
Yeah.
Like the great virtual race across Tennessee. I first looked at those and thought, they're not really races. I don't think I'm going to do those. But then I got into it, and they really are something that can help keep you motivated. And even though you can't be out there racing with other people, it can help you get the mileage in, and you have a lot more creativity. Like I did a race that it was a team race, went across the U.S. And we had, I think 11 or 12 people on our team. And there were some people who were not ultra runners, and they'd go out 5 or 6 times a day, do 2 or 3 miles. Then a couple hours later, go out and do another couple miles. And by the end of the day, they'd gotten 15 miles in, which contributed to the team. The team I was on, we actually were the first ones to finish that distance. But so expand your horizons, look at new possibilities at some of these virtual events. Of course, we'd love to have you join the Chase the Jester Cross California event, but there's plenty of other ones out there as well that you can look into, and the prices are right, and you can do it at your own pace. And at home,
well, and I was going to say that, way back in May, I imagine your daughter made the logo that's behind my head, and it says Chase the Jester across California virtual running support community. And I've really seen that, people supporting yourselves. And what's even crazier is my wife, she's on her phone, and you get these ads. She's been getting these ads for this Tahoe to Malibu race, and so she's like interested in possibly doing something. And so you're getting a lot of people kind of getting out of their 5K every weekend run or half marathon or marathon and just doing something kind of crazy. Like I've been doing this monthly where you had a 20-minute run, then the next month a 40, then a 3-hour. Well, this coming weekend, it's supposed to be 12 hours. It's supposed to be 110. So I'm going to try and see how many miles I can actually do on a treadmill in 12 hours. Now, our buddy Craig, who you saw, and I'm going to go to his race, he actually did a 100-miler this past winter with another buddy of mine, Scott, on their treadmills. I don't think I can do that, but I'm hoping to maybe get 20, 25 miles and see how it works. So Sounds good. Good words of this talk, and we'll definitely be talking again. So let's end this show and just, any last things you want to say, and then we'll say goodbye till next time. So,
all right.
What's up,
well,
man?
as I always like to end what I do with be kind to each other, be gentle on yourself. Take one step today that can change the world tomorrow for good. Virtual hug to all of you. Andy, I love you, my brother. Thanks for doing these. I love getting on and just talking shop with you about these races. It's always a lot of fun. So look forward to our next podcast.
Oh, yeah. Definitely makes my day much, much better talking to you. So we'll see you guys later. Bye.